The SEC amended Regulation S&P in May 2024. Smaller RIAs under $1.5 billion assets under management must comply by June 3rd, 2026. This is not optional. The SEC is not measuring firm size. They don't care how small you are. As long as you meet that threshold of $1.5 billion assets under management or smaller, you have to comply. But here's the bright side. There are 10 things that you can do to get done before the deadline. How are you doing? My name is Harrison Barron from Secure Wealth IT. We help financial firms make sure that they are in compliance and also make sure that their systems are running smoothly. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can head over to securewealthit.com. I will also leave a link down in the comments. So let's talk about the important things. Let's talk about step one. It's making sure that you are a covered institution. And I know that kind of sounds crazy, but a covered institution includes registered independent advisors, broker-dealers, investment companies, funding portfolios, and registered transfer agents. If you're an RA, you're also covered. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you have a compliance officer or a CCO, you might be okay. But if you don't have one of those or you're unsure, these are the categories that actually fall under it. So what is customer information and what does it actually mean? Because we have to understand that for Reg SP or Regulation SP. The definition got way bigger recently. Customer information now includes records about individuals who may not even be your own clients, such as customers of another financial institution whose data has been provided to your firm. That is something very different than it has always been. This includes all client data in your possession or handled by a third party on your behalf, even if the data comes from another firm. That's the craziest part. So, if you're a custodian or clearing firm that shares client information with you, that data is now your responsibility under Regulation S&P also. I apologize. I'm just the messenger when it comes to this. And you have to know what sensitive customer information is, because this is the most important aspect. Is the amended rule creates a new category called sensitive customer information. A lot of jargon, but this includes things like social security numbers, driver's license numbers, biometric identifiers, which is very, very broad, and account login credentials. Basically, any data that could cause substantial harm if compromised to a potential client. Once again, it doesn't have to be a client. It could be somebody that you have information for that is no longer a client. This is the data that triggers the notification requirement that is actually breached. So what should you do? You should build or update a written incident response plan. This is one of the most important aspects. Firms must develop, implement, and maintain a written policy and procedures for an incident response program designed to detect, respond to, and recover from unauthorized access to customer information. That is the core of all of this. These programs need to clearly outline procedures for detecting incidents, assessing their scope, containing them, investigating, and coordinating customer notifications. This is vital for as you progressively grow and deal with these regulations. You can't have a we'll figure it out if something happens. That is not a plan and is subject to fines and scrutiny from the SEC. That is the core principle of this. And you have currently, at the time of recording this, about 10 weeks before that June 3rd deadline. So let's talk about the next step in this process, which is setting up your 30-day customer notification process, because this is, believe it or not, part of it. If a breach occurs involving sensitive customer information, you must send a clear and conspicuous written notice to affected individuals no later than 30 days after discovering the incident. If you don't do that, you are now out of compliance, and you're also subject to fines and scrutiny of the SEC. You can skip the notice only if a reasonable investigation shows that the data has not been and is not reasonably likely to be used in any way that would cause substantial harm. Now, this is kind of vague, and I am not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, but I promise you, in this case, you are going, after I just spent, I don't even know, a full 45 minutes going through the SEC video. It is rough. So what do you have to do in order to be compliant? You have to make sure that you audit every vendor who touches client data, including yourself. You got to do a self-audit. You have to amend the rules that defines a service provider as any person or entity that receives, maintains, processes, or otherwise is permitted access to customer information through its provisions or services directly to a covered institution. This is super important because if you don't make this amendment, you are now out of compliance and they will ask for this documentation. It's not very fun, but it is what they're requiring. And you have to make sure that your systems, this means your CRMs, your email platforms, your cloud provider, backup provider, your phone systems, anywhere client data lives and passes through is subject to this. And many RIAs that we've seen operate lean compliance teams and try to not really worry that much about it or try to pass on responsibility. This amended rule targets those operations directly. And that's one of the biggest problems is it's no longer something you could think about later on. It's something you have to be doing immediately. So what's the next step in these 10 steps? You have to update your vendor contracts with the 72-hour rule, right? We've already talked about updating the vendor contracts and what defines a service provider, but now we have to go through and let them know that they must notify you no later than 72 hours after discovering a breach of customer information in their system. Contracts should be clearly defined vendor responsibilities, including incident response for the 72-hour breach and compliance obligations. This is vitally important because if you don't have that updated with them, you're once again no longer in compliance and you are subject to this. Step 8, document everything for record keeping. Now, this is where things can kind of be a little bit easier, but also still a pain in the butt. Firms must maintain detailed records for 5 years with quick access for them for 2 years. And records include written policies and procedures, incident response programs, disposal rule procedures, service provider oversight documentation, documented incidents and your responses, and written agreements with your service providers. So that's about 7 things that need to be stored away for 5 years. Going forward with 2 years of immediate access and 5 years, or after that 2 years, you can file them away and it could take a little bit of time to actually go get them. So step 9, you have to train your team. Staff needs to be trained on incident response protocols and escalations. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something is going to happen in the technology world. And in this case, you have to train your staff. You're doing them a disservice if you don't train them. You have to make sure everyone in your office knows who to call and what to do if they suspect a breach. This includes front desk staff, paraplanners, and advisors all together, and everybody that is involved in that shop that is touching this information. It is not something that you can just ad hoc. You should even run a tabletop exercise, walking through a fake breach scenario so people aren't learning the process for the first time when something actually does happen. And step 10, you want to review your privacy notices. There is an exception to the annual privacy notice deliverability requirement if your firm only shares non-public personal information with non-affiliated third parties under an opt-out exception. And you haven't changed your disclosure policies since your most recent notice to customers. Even if you qualify for the exception, review your policies, notices, and make the changes in the language to reflect the actual data practices. Because if you don't do this, it is leaving a massive vulnerability. I am trying to yell this from the mountaintops because it is so critically important, and fines range between $50,000 and well over $100,000 for different RIA firms depending on your size. And they don't care how big or how small you actually are. Regulation S&P or Reg S&P is a massive change. Bigger firms over 1.5 billion had to make the update in December, and now it is your turn to make the change. I hope you guys found this valuable. If you did, or you want help with this, you can reach out to us at securewealthit.com. Link down below. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the next video. I promise I have some great videos coming about all things tech. Take care.